10 Typewriter Tales, a collection of stories, written by Thomas Fincham, narrated by John William Cantiz. The Auction. Present. 3 people dead, all 3 in the bathroom, all 3 sitting on the toilet seats. Chief Investigator Coburn has no idea how and why. He parks a block from the hotel and heads for the main entrance. On the sidewalk, he bumps into a man wearing a blue cap, but ignores the man's apologies and heads straight for the lobby. One officer stands in front of the men's bathroom. He shakes his head. Coburn sees the 3 victims are shot through the stomach. He recognizes them immediately. They're the bosses of the local gangs. There's also a rare ruby necklace sitting on top of one of the garbage bins. "Who was here first?" Coburn asks, meaning at the scene. 2 officers wearing brown suits introduce themselves. One is tall, the other short. "Someone tipped us off," they say in unison. Before they can say more, Coburn is informed that another man is dead, this one on the 4th floor of the building. They find the body sprawled in the bathtub. The man's face is bloody and unrecognizable. From what they can tell, the man had long blonde hair, a full-grown beard, and was wearing a bright blue suit. The 2 officers confirm the dead man as being their tipster. Chief Coburn has 3 dead thugs, a rare ruby necklace, a man who looks like he's committed suicide, and no answers as to why and how all of this happened. Earlier. I sat in a fancy restaurant, waiting for the 2 officers to arrive. Wearing a bright blue suit was attracting too much attention, but I didn't mind. In fact, I wanted it to. My beard, which had taken me 2 months to grow, was now perfect, but I disliked wearing this long blonde wig. The thought of wearing another human's hair was revolting. I took a sip of my drink as my mind drifted back to why I was here. I am the right-hand man for Lou. Lou runs a bookie on top of a pizza parlor. My reputation as a determined man has made Lou the largest bookie in this town. I always collect my debts. What about the people who don't pay, you ask? Simple. I hound them until they do. Let me introduce some of the characters. Stan runs the 2nd largest bookie underneath a printing store. Stan's right-hand man is a moron by the name of Kurt. Lou and Stan hate each other as much as a cat hates a dog. They have been fighting for years to be the number 1 bookie in town. They'll do anything to beat each other, and I mean anything. I enjoyed what I did, but all that changed one day. I remember coming back to my apartment one night to find a letter stuck between the side of my front door. It was a letter from my mother's nursing home. The letter was informing me of her death. The nursing home had been trying to contact me for weeks and had left several messages with Lou. My mother had gotten weaker, and she had wanted to see me. For years I'd been sending money for her care. I didn't get to see my mother, but at least I was able to take care of her. Outraged, I confronted Lou. "You worthless piece of garbage," I yelled. "Why didn't you tell me my mother was sick?" I didn't actually say piece of garbage. I said something far worse, but I'll stick to that. "Come on, Nick," Lou said. "I didn't want you to get all worried." Worried? That was my mother. She was always sick. I thought she would eventually get better. Old people, they get sick and then they get better. "No, they don't," I shot back. "When they get sick, they die." "She's dead?" he asked. I waited, but his eyes showed no sadness. "Yes," I finally said. "That's too bad, Nick. She was old, you know. But let me make it up to you. I know a guy down there. I'll send some money. You just stay put, and I'll take care of the funeral." Then I understood. Lou knew if I found out my mother was sick, I would fly to see her, which would mean a loss for his business. He was only worried about being number 1, and with me, he was always number 1. So that's when I decided to do something. Through my dark sunglasses, I saw the 2 officers enter the restaurant. One was tall, the other short. Let's call them Humpty and Dumpty. Humpty's the tall one, and Dumpty the short. They flashed their badges and sat. "You have something for us?" Humpty said. I smiled. "You're both new?" They looked at each other, and Dumpty answered, "But experienced." "Good," I said. I knew they were new and eager to make a mark. "There's going to be an auction tonight." "What kind of auction?" Humpty asked. "Is there any other kind?" I replied. They looked at each other, but then Dumpty spoke. "Go on." "There will be an auction tonight," I repeated. "Where?" Humpty asked. I was getting the idea that Humpty asked all the questions while Dumpty broke the awkward silences. "I don't know yet." "Then why are we here?" "The auction is for a stolen item, a very valuable stolen item." "Go on," Dumpty said. "It's for a ruby necklace for a museum, worth thousands." "And it's going to happen tonight?" Humpty asked. "Yes, and I want you two to bust it." "Why us?" Dumpty inquired. "I want immunity." "Why should we give you that?" "Because you need me to tell you where it is, and I need you to bust it." "Why are you telling us this?" "Personal reasons." They glanced at each other, and I knew who was going to speak. "There has to be more," Dumpty said. "Let's say the people I work for no longer need me, and soon I may become expendable." They looked at each other and nodded. I knew the deal was done. "When will you tell us where it's going to happen?" Humpty asked. "As soon as I find out." "All right," Dumpty said, "but call us first. Got it?" The deal was now sealed. "Got it," I said. When I was certain they were far away from the restaurant, I went to the bathroom. I removed the sunglasses and tore the stupid wig off my head. It was beginning to itch. I changed into my usual black and gray suit and headed out from the back of the restaurant. I took the cab to Lou's place, but before I went up, I stopped at the pizza parlor below for a bite. Mac was behind the counter, serving up the orders. Mac worked for us. In fact, everyone at the pizza parlor worked for us. The parlor was established to tip us off if the cops were going to bust us. Plus, the parlor was used to find out who were legitimate gamblers and who were undercover cops. If you wanted to get on our private list, you had to come through the pizza parlor, and if given the green light, you were sent upstairs to Lou's place. Mac gave me a slice of veggie. "How's business today?" I asked. "No good and good." I understood. I looked around the parlor, and it was packed. I always asked Mac, "How's business today?" His first answer referred to the bookie business, and the second to the pizza business. Today, the bookie business was no good, while the pizza business was good. This was our little code. Nothing too fancy, but it worked for us. I took a bite and realized how irritated our competitor Stan would be if he found out how good our pizza business was doing. His printing store was doing lousy. How much money can you make from a 3 cents a page copy business? Not a lot, I concluded. I bet it was Kurt's idea. I went upstairs. Lou was sitting behind the desk, screaming into the telephone. "Get my money, you bastard, or else I'm going to cut your balls off." He slammed the phone down. Lou was methodically going through his black book to find and collect all the money he was owed. "Where the hell were you?" he spat. "Jogging," I said. "Jogging? Do you have any idea what kind of shit I'm in? I'm losing my hair, and you're prancing around the city jogging?" I shrugged, and then I sat on the leather sofa. This gave time for Lou to cool off. "Nick, buddy, I need you. Tonight. I could be the owner of a rare necklace." "Why?" I asked, knowing full well the answer. His face turned red. "Because I don't want that maggot Stan getting it." "Right," I said. "Whatever." He picked up his black book and said, "I want you to go down to Pete's place and get my money." "How much does he owe?" 10 grand. "He doesn't have that kind of money." "I don't care. Break his legs, pawn his car, sell his wife's jewelry. Just get my money." "Okay," I said, and left. Peter Flamen lived in a middle-class suburban neighborhood. I surveyed his house, which looked like it was built in the 1920s. There was a for sale sign on the lawn. I knocked on the door and a young woman answered. She was holding a baby. "Mrs. Flamen, is your husband in?" I asked politely. "Yes, one moment, please," she replied with an innocent smile. I saw her go into the kitchen. The house was filled with boxes, and everything seemed out of place. I heard her voice, followed by a man's growl. After a brief argument, Peter Flamen appeared. He was a short, skinny man with round glasses. He looked nervous, and rightly so. "Hey, Pete, you moving?" Yeah, he said, the words barely coming out. "We need to talk." "Nick," he pleaded. Not here." He looked in the direction of the kitchen. Mrs. Flamen emerged and said, "Honey, aren't you going to invite the nice gentleman in?" Yes, please come in." I could tell Mrs. Flamen had no idea what her husband had been up to. I sat on a plastic-wrapped sofa, and Pete pulled up a chair. Mrs. Flamen was still holding the baby as she asked, "Can I get you anything?" "Coffee would be nice," I replied. She disappeared into the kitchen. "So, Pete, you're moving," I said. Yeah, he swallowed. "To my parents' place." "When?" "In a couple of weeks." I knew that meant a couple of days. "You know why I'm here?" He nodded and was about to speak when he saw his wife come in holding a coffee pot and a cup. "Thank you," I said. "Honey," Pete said, "why don't you take the baby upstairs and pack your stuff?" She smiled and went up. "Nice girl," I said. Yeah, he said. I could tell he didn't want to get her involved in all of this, which was fine by me. "Lou wants his money," I said. I could see the sweat on his forehead and temples. He licked his lips and said, "Nick, I don't have that kind of money. I lost my job." "What about your car?" "The bank took it, just like they're going to take my house. That's why I have to move back to my parents' house. My wife is not too happy about it, but she's making the best of it. We got a baby now." "You have to give me something," I said. He removed his wedding ring and said, "It's gold. Probably get you a few $100. I'll tell my wife I've lost it." He got up and went into the kitchen. He came back with a cookie jar. "My wife has been saving some money for the baby. It's about $800. Plus, I got some cash here and there. I can give it to you tonight." "Damn," I muttered. "What will you tell your wife?" "I'll think of something. I'll ask my parents for help. My dad'll be angry, but my mom will help out. She always did." That reminded me of my mother. I shook my head and said, "All right, Pete. This is what I'm going to do. You keep the ring and all the cash, and you promise me no more gambling." He looked at me as if I had said he was acquitted of a murderous crime. "I promise, I swear, no more," he said. "I mean it, Pete. If I find out you're throwing money away, I'll find you, and when I get through with you, you won't be fit to have any more kids. Got it?" Yes, no more, I swear." I got up. "What about Lou?" he asked. "I'll deal with Lou. Just take care of your kid. And thank your wife for the coffee." I picked up a rose and smelled it. I was standing outside my friend Montel's flower shop. He had every kind of flower, from chrysanthemum to carnation to daffodils. I went inside, and he greeted me with a wide smile. "Let me tell you something about Montel. He's black, and he loves flowers." "What brings you to my humble establishment?" he asked with a bow. "I need to talk to you," I replied, smelling a lisianthus. "How do I know the names of all these flowers?" When you spend years with someone whose life is flowers, you learn a few things. Montel nodded to a girl to take over. We went to the back of the shop. "What can I do for you, Nick?" he said. "I need the money." "How much?" "All of it." "All of it?" "Yeah, and now." Montel didn't look too happy, but he agreed. He went to a corner and gently picked up a topiary. He pulled out a thick brown envelope from underneath and placed the topiary back inside the pot. He dusted the dirt off the envelope and handed it to me. "The full 40 grand?" I said, weighing the envelope in my hand. "You want to count it?" he said. "I trust you," I said, and placed the envelope in my pocket. How do I have 40 grand, you ask? I'm not your average tax-paying citizen. Whenever my employer didn't receive the full amount of debt he was owed, most probably I took it. "Why don't you shave that thing off?" Montel asked. I scratched my beard. "If everything works out, then hopefully tonight." We made our way back out. I said, "Did you speak to your cousin?" "I did." "What did he say?" "He likes the idea." Montel rubbed his bald head. "I don't care if he likes the idea. Is he in or is he out?" "He's in." Good, I said. I probably won't see you again, right? He said, sounding not too happy. Yeah, I said, looking away. Take care of yourself, bro. I will. Take this. He handed me a rose. Thanks. I walked away. I stood at the corner of a street and waited. I removed the brown envelope and looked inside. A stack of $100 bills was neatly stuck together. When you're around that kind of money 24 hours a day, you know how much is how much. I pulled out a portion of it and placed it in my pants pockets. The rest I placed back inside my jacket. In the distance, I saw Kurt come out of the printing store and walk east. I followed. He then turned north, and after a few yards, went behind an alley. I peeked into the alley and found Kurt walking back and forth nervously. He was looking at his watch and cursing. I'm not late, I said, startling him. Shit, he said, regaining his composure. Kurt had long blonde hair, a beard, and a busted nose. Kurt's employer, Stan, is not what you call a forgiving man. If Kurt screwed up, Stan punished him. Something like in the movies, where the right-hand man is unable to do something and the boss slaps him around. In this case, Kurt was unable to collect a debt, and Stan punched and beat him until his nose was broken in 4 places. Over the years, I've seen Kurt with a fat lip, swollen eye, bruised body. Every kind of abuse you can imagine, Kurt has gone through it. You sure it's gonna work? He asked. Of course, if you keep your end of the bargain. Yeah, I'm in, he said, looking away. I could tell Kurt was hiding something. I spoke, but took my time. If you want to back out, tell me now. No, he began pacing again. Stan will be punished, he said, almost speaking to himself. I will punish him. He looked like he enjoyed saying those words, and I didn't blame him. Who else will be with you? I asked. Only me and Stan. You sure? Yeah, I'm sure. All right, here's the key to room 304. After we're done, we'll go there. We clean up and leave. Got it? Yeah, I got it. He stared at the key with pleasure. I pulled out a bright blue suit and handed it to Kurt. Wear this tonight. Why? That's how I know you're in. If I don't see you wearing it tonight, I pull out. Okay, I'll wear it. He smiled. I didn't like the smile. I went back to Lou's place. He was standing in front of the bathroom mirror, applying grease to his hair. You got the money? He said, looking at himself in the mirror. Yeah. The whole 10 grand? He said, surprised. Yeah. Sneaky Pete, Lou laughed. I knew that weasel had the money. I dropped the money on the table as Lou came out. He picked the money up and quickly counted it. Lou was good with paper. It was an automatic counting machine. There's 400 missing, he said, looking in my direction. I pulled out some bills and slid them on the table. You're not stiffing me, right? I just flopped onto the sofa. I didn't really give a damn. Lou opened a briefcase and placed the money inside, along with the rest. It was getting dark, and I could tell Lou was getting nervous. He kept combing his greasy hair back. But what Lou didn't realize was I was the one who should have been nervous. My plan for tonight was very risky. It relied too much on humans, and humans can change colors in a second. You ready? Lou asked, irritated to see me so relaxed. I leaned down and pulled out a box from underneath the sofa. I placed the box on my lap and opened the latches. In front of me was an SP-10 Magnum Camo, a 10-gauge, 3.5 chamber, vent rib barrel, gas-operated shotgun. A real beauty. Ready, I said. I hid the shotgun under my coat. We parked a block away from the hotel. We waited. Lou was getting even more nervous. His fingers tapped the briefcase. We go in, Lou said. We make the deal, and if the deal goes sour, you start shooting. Got it? Got it, I said, caring less. We saw Stan and Kurt enter the hotel lobby. We got out of the car and slowly made our way to the front entrance. A doorman welcomed us with a big smile. Inside, we went to the far end of the hotel, to the men's bathroom. There was a yellow sign placed outside the door, indicating it was temporarily out of order. I pulled out a key, courtesy of an employee of the hotel, and unlocked the door. Stan was standing in the middle of the bathroom waiting for us. Kurt was behind him. wearing an ugly blue suit, leaning on one of the cubicles. "Lou," Stan hissed. "Stan," Lou answered with disgust. For a few minutes, we all stood examining each other in silence. Stan was holding a briefcase similar to Lou's. From the corner of my eye, I could see a bulge under Kurt's blue suit. Probably a shotgun. Good. Our silence was broken when the third party entered. Tom appeared, holding a small case. Tom is an avid collector. Well, I shouldn't say collector. He's a thief. He collects rare and valuable items. Some he keeps, while others he auctions off. Behind Tom was Eddie. Eddie is over 6'5", 300 pounds, and he's black. This means no one messes with Tom. "Good evening, gentlemen," Tom said, showing his golden tooth. "I hope you're eager and ready for a good bargain." He opened the small case and pulled out a black box. He placed the box on the sink counter. "As I explained on the phone," he said, "the bidding must begin at 50,000. Both Stan and Lou nodded. "Good. Then I present you the item for today." He slowly opened the black box, revealing the necklace 1 second at a time. It was sparkly, and the ruby was green. We were all in awe. I must admit that necklace was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. 50,000, Stan blurted to start the bidding. Tom smiled. 55,000, Lou said. 60,000. 70,000. This went on until the price reached 150,000. I knew Lou did not have more than 160. Any price above that was beyond his reach. When the price reached 160, Lou was sweating. 165, Lou said hesitantly. Stan smiled. 175. Tom waited for Lou, but Lou could not afford to go over 175. He just lowered his eyes in defeat. The bidding was over. "I guess we have a lucky winner," Tom said. "No, we don't," I said, removing my shotgun and aiming it at Tom. Tom raised his palms and smiled. "Let's not do anything rash, gentlemen." Lou's eyes were now burning with victory. "Do 'em," he said to me. I loaded my shotgun and turned it on Lou. "What are you doing?" Lou asked in disbelief. Stan grinned at Lou. "See, when you let your pets gain control, they bite you." Kurt removed the shotgun from under his coat and placed the muzzle in the back of Stan's head. "Who's the pet now?" Kurt asked. "What are you doing, you stupid Shut up!" Kurt yelled. His voice echoed throughout the bathroom. "Kurt," Stan said, "you don't know what you're doing. Put the gun down, or else I'm gonna—" "You're gonna what?" Kurt hissed in Stan's ear. "Beat me? Slap me? Make me say I'm sorry and stupid? Now look who's stupid." Tom was beginning to lose his cool. "Gentlemen, if you don't control your men, I'll have to." He looked in Eddie's direction, who was standing quietly in the back. Eddie gently unbuttoned his white coat and pulled out a shotgun. He aimed the gun at Tom. "Eddie," Tom said in disbelief. "Shut up and move," Eddie said, waving the shotgun. Kurt opened the cubicle doors. I motioned our victims onto the toilet seats, and Eddie turned on all the taps full and pushed the hand dryers on. Amidst all the noise from the taps and the hand dryers, we got in position. We fired, killing our ungrateful employers. Kurt had the most pleasure pulling the trigger and seeing Stan beg for mercy. Eddie had no reaction. I felt this all could have been avoided if Lou had just let me go meet my sick mother. Against Kurt's wishes, we abandoned the necklace, picked up the money-filled briefcases, and left the men's bathroom. I forgot to mention Eddie was Montel's cousin. Inside the elevator, I pressed the button for the 4th floor. "I thought we were going to the 3rd floor," Kurt asked, confused. "Change of plans," I replied. Eddie shoved his shotgun into Kurt's back. "Drop it," he said. Kurt reluctantly dropped his weapon. "You're both dead," Kurt said. I unlocked the door to room 409. Eddie escorted Kurt in. "Move," I said, motioning to the bathroom. Kurt did as he was told. "Get in," I said, waving the shotgun at the bathtub. Kurt looked pissed. "Lie down," I said. Kurt lay on his back. I turned on the taps and wrapped a towel around my shotgun. I felt Eddie move past me as he placed his finger on the toilet's handle. Ready. I placed the shotgun between Kurt's eyes. I think it was now that reality set in, and Kurt became pale. "Nick, You can have the money. Just let me go, Kurt pleaded. I don't think so, Kurt. You know why? Because I know what kind of a man you are. I pulled the trigger, and just as I did, Eddie flushed the toilet. It was music. Eddie and I quickly divided the money equally, and then I made a phone call. I called Humpty and Dumpty. I started breathing heavily like I had just been running. I sounded scared. I don't know what happened. Everything went wrong. Come quickly. I gave the name of the hotel. You have to help. I hung up and smiled at Eddie. Outside the room, I asked Eddie, "Why did you do it?" "For the money, of course," he replied. I went across to room 408. I quickly showered, shaved, and changed into jeans, a white shirt, and a brown corduroy jacket. I placed a blue cap on my head and looked at myself in the mirror. Perfect, I thought. I placed the old clothes in a bag and, on my way down, threw them in the garbage. Outside, I inadvertently bumped into Chief Investigator Coburn, but he was too preoccupied to notice me, or my apologies. I disappeared. The green fields passed by me as I sat near the window in the train's passenger coach. I didn't know where I was going, but I was going somewhere far. Why did I shoot Kurt, you ask? You don't know something that I do. If I had gone into room 304, I would not have come back alive. Kurt's men were waiting for us, and there's no doubt they would have done to us what I'd done to Kurt. Plus, I needed to show I had committed suicide. With 3 dead bodies, I don't think Humpty and Dumpty would have stopped until they found me. I've learned not to trust cops. Why didn't I take the ruby necklace, you ask? Let me say that you can't have the cake and the icing too. The cops have the bodies of well-known crime bosses, and they've recovered a stolen ruby necklace. That's hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. Now they'll be less inclined to search for the killers. They say a midlife crisis can be a good thing. It shakes you up and tells you to change your life. My midlife crisis was the death of my mother. I knew I had to change my life and change it for the better. My mother was never too proud of me for what I did, but she always loved me. I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I do know that I have to do something that she would be proud of. This has been 10 Typewriter Tales, a collection of stories, written by Thomas Fincham, narrated by John William Cantees, copyright 2021 by Thomas Fincham, production copyright by Thomas Fincham.